This is an assumption question. The first clause here is the conclusion of the argument. The missing link is between the reasoning given and the conclusion made here. We need an answer choice that strengthens the argument and is necessarily true for the argument to hold ground. The conclusion is that examining the political candidates' legislative records is a key part of the voting process. And the reason given is that by doing so, a voter can eliminate candidates whose political stance do not support the voter's needs. You see, there is a big gap here between examining legislative records and eliminating candidates whose political stances do not support the voters' needs. To be able to figure out that a candidate's political stances do not support the voters' needs by simply examining the legislative records is a long shot. This is something that needs to be assumed in reaching the conclusion, and this is exactly what answer choice B exploits. Yes, the argument here logically depends on the conclusion that voters can correctly determine whether a candidate's political stances are not supportive of their needs. This answer choice strengthens the argument, and this is something that must be true for the argument to hold ground. Negate it and you will get that voters cannot correctly determine whether a candidate's political stances are not supportive of their needs. And if voters cannot correctly determine all of this, the conclusion goes haywire. Therefore, even assumption negation test confirms that answer choice B is a valid assumption. Answer choice A points out another benefit of this process and therefore strengthens the argument, but this benefit does not have to be necessarily there for the argument to hold ground. So while answer choice may be a fine strengthening statement, this does not qualify as an assumption. Answer choice C is extreme. To say that this examination is the most important part of a productive voting process cannot be established. Please be always very careful when you see such extreme tonality. Such answer choices are only rarely assumptions. Please understand, this examination does not have to be the most important part. Even if it were one of the important parts, the conclusion would hold. So answer choice C should be eliminated. Answer choice D also has a similar problem, that the sole purpose of examination of a candidate's legislative records is to judge whether the candidate's political stances are supportive of the voters' needs is something that doesn't have to be assumed in reaching the conclusion. Sole purpose is very strong. Even if the examination is one of the multiple purposes, the conclusion would hold. So while answer choice D may be a fine strengthening statement, this does not qualify as an assumption. Answer choices C and D teach you something very important. Be very careful when you see such extreme answer choices in assumption questions. Answer choice E has multiple problems. First of all, it uses past tense, so this becomes out of the scope of the argument. And once again, it uses a strong phrase, most important factor. It doesn't have to be the most important factor. It can be one of the many important factors. Answer choice B strengthens the argument, and it is something that must be true for the argument to hold ground. B is the correct answer choice.